say something. I'm back. Before we get to it, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Make sure you watch the full video. With all that being said, let's get right to it.
You've probably seen or heard of great prison escape movies like Papillon, Prison Break, or my personal favorite, Shawshank Redemption. Another one is Escape from Alcatraz. But if you haven't seen it, then it's great that you're watching this video for a brief history of the true events that the film is based on. Escape from Alcatraz was done by Morris and the Anglins. And although that sounds like a rock album by an 80s UK boy band, it's actually one of the biggest mysteries in American history, with 4 criminals masterminding one of the greatest prison escapes. Let's get into the story. Alcatraz Federal Penitentiary was also known as the United States Penitentiary, Alcatraz Island, and was widely regarded as escape-proof and the most secure prison in the country. Alcatraz is an Arabic word meaning the rock, as it was built on an island just 2 kilometers off San Francisco, California. The main prison was built from 1910 to 1912 as a military prison. However, the Federal Bureau of Prisons took over the facility, tightened security, and by August of 1938, Alcatraz Prison became the destination for America's toughest criminals, those who committed the most heinous of crimes, or those who had caused problems or attempted escape at other federal prisons. Notable members of Alcatraz include Al Capone, Machine Gun Kelly, Creepy Karpis, and many more. The prison was thought of as inescapable because of the 2 levels of security it had. In its first year, Uncle Sam's Devil Island had 242 inmates and 155 staff members. This gave it the lowest ratio of prisoners to guards in any American prison at the time. Consequently, any attempt to escape in a belligerent manner would prove futile, as it did on several occasions. Our escapees, however, were aware of this and took a different and ingenious approach. But beyond the airtight security within the facility, other parts of...
Hey, you gotta always think about it though. If you're really desperate enough, you'll find a way. You'll find a
prison
way.
And the island were also secured with barbed wire, 25-foot fences, and guard towers where escapees could be easily gunned down from. It was Mother Nature that provided the most daunting task, however, because for anyone that managed to make it to shore, you had to make the swim from the island through chilly waters without dying from hypothermia or drowning. Houdini would have a tough time beating Alcatraz. So, how did our escapees do it? Well, let's meet them, shall we? First up is Alan West, who was the oldest member of the Alcatraz Federal Penitentiary among the escape planners. He managed to get arrested over 20 times in his life. After he attempted to escape Florida State Prison, he was transferred to Alcatraz in 1957. Up next is Frank Morris, who was generally considered to be the smartest in the group, and probably came up with the entire escape plan. Not only was he the smartest in the group, Morris also had an IQ of 133, which put him in the top 2% of all Americans at the time. Morris had already escaped from the Louisiana State Penitentiary, only to get arrested a year later committing a burglary. He was then sent to Alcatraz in January of 1960 to prevent him from making...
I guess even the smart people can make dumb moves. Crazy.
...any other great escapes. However, he was probably the most important character in coming up with the plan, seeing as he was smart and had spent his early years serving lunch to prisoners. He already knew what prison looked like and had experience breaking out of prison already. Finally, we have John William Anglin and Clarence Anglin, also known as the Anglin brothers. The brothers from Georgia were born to a family of 13 kids, and despite the population density, they were said to be inseparable as kids. They remained inseparable even after John was transferred to Alcatraz in 1960 for attempting to escape from the Atlanta Penitentiary, because Clarence followed suit and got transferred to Alcatraz in 1961. One important aspect of their childhood is that they were really good swimmers. When the family would go down to Michigan, they swam in Lake Michigan's very icy waters to the amazement of their other siblings. I think you know where this is going.
Oh God.
The 4 inmates in this great escape were already acquainted with each other from past incarcerations in Florida and Georgia. So, seeing as the conditions of the facility were steadily deteriorating, and the fact that they had a previously successful escapee within their ranks, they decided to register to get adjacent rooms in Block B of the building. The first barriers they had to get through in the prison would be the heat-treated steel doors of cells and other prison doors. The doors were tool-proof and impossible to saw through with anything the prisoners had. The alternative of getting the keys to open every door they needed to get through was nigh on impossible. This is where their Block B cells came into play. Because if you can't get through the door, then make another door in the wall. And that's what these four men did. With the help of discarded saw blades, metal spoons, and a crude electric drill improvised from the motor of a vacuum cleaner, they managed to gradually create holes to widen the ventilation ducts in their cells. The ventilation ducts led to a corridor, which led to a vacant top level. They did their drilling during music hour so that the noise would be masked, and they also covered up the defaced wall with painted cardboards. Beyond the corridors, they would access the vacant top level and work on their escape plan and tools there, since it was pretty much unguarded. Despite Morris being regarded as the master planner and West the least intellectual of the bunch, it was West who actually discovered that they could access a ventilation shaft that led to the top of the roof. Their plan had just become much simpler, since they didn't need to pass through any gates or get any keys from guards. Therefore, their work in the vacant top level simply involved building a raft, life preservers, and paddles that they would use to get across the most notorious staff at Alcatraz, the waters. Using the design they got from a popular mechanics magazine and well over 50 raincoats they managed to gather, they constructed the life preservers and a 6x14-foot raft. They stitched the raincoats together and used steam pipes to seal them. And I know what's on your mind. How did no one notice when they were away from their cells? Well, in what is probably the most ingenious ideas of all, they camouflaged their absence by carefully crafting dummy heads. They made use of concrete dust, toothpaste, soap, and toilet paper to craft this modern work of art. They completed the heads by attaching some hair on them, and since Clarence Anglin worked as a barber, they could easily get hair from the barbershop floor. This is the result. Ingenious, isn't it?
That's
the broken
cold,
nose is from when
bruh.
the guards tried to wake Morris up the next.
They cold, bro. Like, see, like stuff like that. If you were that smart, if they really survived it, they should go. Like, even though they probably can't do it because they in jail, but somebody who's that smart, if you really know how to get out of stuff like that, I know y'all seen the movie Escape Plan. Hey, put them smarts to use, bruh.
This morning, only for the head to roll off and hit the floor. How would you react if you were the guard that morning, seeing the head of an inmate roll off their bed? Anyway, the escapees set their prison break attempt for the 11th of June, 1962, 6 months after they had begun their plan by getting adjacent cells, and after lights out, they set their dummies in place, removed the cardboard masking the gaping ventilation shaft, and set for the roof. However, like most boy bands, the crew would lose their oldest member, Alan West. You see, West used concrete to hold his cardboard camouflage in place over the ventilation shaft. So when it was time to get moving, the concrete had dried. He struggled to get it open, and he did. But when he got to the rendezvous point, Morris and the Anglins had already left without him.
Damn.
Alan West did what any reasonable man would do. He returned to his cell and went back to sleep. From the top of the roof, Morris and the Anglins had slid 15 feet.
At least he didn't go snitch, bro, because he could have been a hater like, man, I ain't going, y'all ain't going. Like, that's cold, though, bro. You had a whole escape plan, you and the crew. And your things, that's cold. It just wasn't meant. It wasn't meant. He was probably too old to be in that water. He probably wasn't going to survive anyway. I can't even get the sentence out.
Down a kitchen pipe from the roof before climbing the barbed wire 12-foot fence before heading to the shoreline. They found a blind spot from the guard towers and searchlights where they inflated their raft using a modified concertina. According to estimates, they finished and set the raft on water around 10 p.m. They had beaten the prison, which was touted as inescapable. They had fooled all the guards and security systems. But did they beat the Florida waters? Well, the consensus on the nature of their aquatic journey is not unanimous. There are two assumptions as to what happened that night. One is that they didn't survive the swim due to the tides, the cold, and the fact that there were no recordings of a stolen car, which would have been necessary for them if they got to land. The second assumption is that they survived the journey since, till this day, their bodies have not been found, which is pretty unusual. Former Alcatraz inmate Darwin Kuhn had this to say.
The reason I think they made it, why they got away, was because everybody else that tried to get off this island was accounted for. Those three guys are still unaccounted for today. So that makes me think they got away.
Oh,
and he's
God.
right. It's quite odd that none of the escapees' bodies were ever discovered, especially since experts say that with instances of drowning, 2 out of 3 bodies are recovered.
Yeah.
Furthermore, family members of the Anglin brothers.
I was just about to say that, bro. Come on. If all 3 drown, you gonna find at least one of the bodies, bro. They gotta find none. Yeah, they for sure got away.
Say that they got unsigned postcards over the years, and their mother received flowers every year on Mother's Day till she died. Of course, this could be from random people. However, at their mother's funeral, people testified to the presence of two tall women strangely being present. At their father's funeral as well, two strange bearded men were seen to have come up to weep at the casket before walking out. Several other reported sightings have been reported of either the Anglin brothers or Frank Morris in places in Florida and even in Brazil. Also, contrary to the initial FBI report that there were no car thefts reported after their escape, a National Geographic documentary proved this to not be the case. They reported that a blue Chevrolet was reported stolen in Marin County on that day, and this is corroborated by stories in the San Francisco Examiner and the Humboldt Times. A motorist in Stockton, California, also reported that he had been forced off the road by three men in a blue Chevrolet the next day. What do you think of the inaccurate FBI report on the stolen Chevrolet? Do you think they're hiding something?
They probably just don't want to acknowledge that somebody really escaped. It's better for them to be like, nah, they drowned. You can't escape this prison.
Also, concerning the threat of drowning and hypothermia, the Anglin brothers already had experience swimming in cold waters, so we know that they could have survived the swim under calm tides. Today, many athletes participate in a triathlon event that involves swimming the same route, and over the years, these amateur athletes have all been successful. But they have the tides on their side. However, investigators say that the tides could have been good enough around 11 p.m. on that day, which is close to when they set out on their journey. So, it's clear that the swim from Alcatraz could have gone either way. That's why the result of the investigation...
And then you got the two swimmers who already done. They probably told them, don't panic, breathe slow. Like, they probably told them exactly what to do, the third dude. And they all made it. We're gonna take our time. We got the doors in place. Nobody's looking for us. Breathe slow. Don't rush. You gonna make it through. Y'all let me know what y'all think about it. Catch you in the next video.